21mm socket, take off all 5 of your lug nuts. And remove the wheel. With your new caliper, I'm going to separate the caliper from the bracket with a 14mm. Oops, there you go. And now what I want to do is take a little bit of brake grease. You don't need a lot for this, but grease up these 2 areas here where the anti-rattle clips go. You just want to prevent rust buildup in the future. So you don't need a lot, because if you put too much, it'll squeeze out and get onto the rotor. Take these clips and make sure that they line up properly. Press them on all the way. You don't want them to be loose. Let's do the same to the other side. Make sure this is pressed down all the way. And even though this is a new caliper, I like to take the slider pins out and add grease to them. Usually they don't come with a whole lot of grease, just enough to prevent them from rusting. If you have to use something to pry the boot off, just be very gentle. Sometimes they're very airtight. All right. And I'm going to take some of my grease, add it to the slider. You can see this one has a rubber dampener in here. Make sure you keep it on the side that it came out of. It's in there for a reason, so you want to make sure it doesn't go on the wrong side. And I'm going to take a little bit of grease, add it to the inside of the boot. You don't need a lot, but this is going to act as a little reserve of grease in there. Usually when you put the pin in, a lot of the grease comes out. So slide it in, and when you slide it in, make sure grease gets up on that ridge there. That's where the boot seats itself and seals up. Give it a couple twists. Let's do the same to this side. Okay, press it down all the way. If you feel that it doesn't go all the way down, it's most likely because there's some air stuck in there, so press it, squeeze the boot, and all the air and extra grease will come out. Perfect. Now this is ready for installation. I'm going to take this whole caliper off, so if you want to separate it, you can. 2 14mm bolts and the caliper comes off the bracket, but I find it easier and quicker to just take these 2 19mm bolts off. Leave this one on just a couple threads so the caliper doesn't fall off when you take off this bottom one. All right, perfect. With a drain pan underneath that can collect the fluid, I'm going to break free this banjo bolt and just make sure it doesn't leak yet, but break it free. That way it's easier to take off when the caliper is off. All right, now you can finish taking off the 2 bolts. Okay, remove the caliper assembly. I'm going to set it down right here on the control arm. Take your new bracket and let's bolt it on. Let's snug it up. All right. Let's torque it. Torque these 2 to 120 foot-pounds. Perfect. Take off your pads from the old bracket. All right, now let's put them into the new bracket. I'm going to put these pads with this spring clip on the top. This is here so I can push the pad out off of the rotor when you're not applying the brakes. And let's install the outer pad. Perfect. Now grab your new caliper. I'm going to put just a little bit of grease on these 2 ears here. That's going to help the pads operate quietly and smoothly. And also on the outer ring of this piston here. You don't need too much, just enough to cover the surface. Now slide the caliper on and make sure it lines up with the 2 slider pins, and install the 2 bolts that hold it on, and then we'll torque those. Let's torque these to 20 foot-pounds. Now get this cap off and let's get ready to transfer over the brake hose. Get your new banjo bolt, And you'll see you have 2 copper crush washers here. Take one off, leave one on. Take the banjo bolt off of the old caliper. Remove this, dispose of your old caliper. Take the old banjo bolt out and make sure it comes off with both of the old washers. And now take your new banjo bolt with that one gasket or washer. Make sure there's no debris on there. Put it through. Take the second one, put that one on, and then you want to line up this little pin to go between those 2 ears. Let's start the banjo bolt on and then snug it up. Okay, let's snug up the banjo bolt. Once it's bottomed out, I like to go about 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn. Basically what you want to do is just crush these copper washers in there, and that's going to create a nice tight seal for you. Right there is good. Now pop off this cover for the bleeder screw, and let's loosen up the bleeder screw and let gravity do its thing. And gravity bleeding basically means letting the fluid get pulled down into the caliper. Air is going to push its way out. And once we get to that point, you can do a full manual brake bleed. Fluid has come out. Snug this up, put your cap back on, and now let's get the wheel on. Let's get the wheel back on. Start on all 5 of your lug nuts, snug them up, and then torque them to 83 foot-pounds.